we felt or were proclaiming we were innocent. I don't know, and I'm not about to pretend.
Shannon Sharpe just cut off Stephen A. Smith. No calls, no texts, no warning, and it all started the moment Stephen spoke on his legal drama. Shannon expected loyalty. Instead, Stephen A. went on air and made it sound like Shannon was already done at ESPN before anything was confirmed. Then, days later, he flipped, suddenly claiming Shannon was innocent, but by then, it was too late. Now fans, celebrities, and insiders are calling Stephen a snake. And Shannon, he's done. No more bro talk, no more friendship, just silence. Behind the scenes, the tension had been building for months. Jealousy, shady behavior, and now 2 major lawsuits threatening to destroy Shannon's reputation. This isn't just a messy fallout between co-hosts, it's the collapse of a media duo. And the internet's watching every move. The breaking point came fast and public. Shannon Sharpe was hit with a lawsuit by a 19-year-old OnlyFans model he was briefly linked to. The accusations were serious. She claimed their relationship involved disturbing behavior and crossed the line from private to dangerous. Shannon denied everything, calling it completely consensual. But by the time the headlines spread, the damage had started. That's when Stephen A. made his move. Instead of staying quiet or showing support, Stephen jumped on air and dropped comments that had fans doing a double take. He didn't defend Shannon. He didn't wait for facts. He basically implied that Shannon's time at ESPN was over, like Disney was ready to wash their hands clean. It wasn't subtle, it wasn't loyal, and people noticed. Viewers were quick to call out the way Stephen framed the story. His tone felt off, like he was distancing himself from Shannon before anything was confirmed. No innocent until proven guilty. No solidarity. Just a carefully worded monologue that read more like damage control than support. Even people close to Shannon were confused. One day, they're co-hosts. The next, Stephen's talking like Shannon's already been replaced. And it didn't stop there. Stephen made sure to remind everyone that when Disney sees you as a liability, you're done. Period. He said it on air. Point blank. That was the moment fans felt the shift. Not just in the story, but in the friendship. Just days after subtly throwing Shannon under the bus, Stephen A. Smith did a complete 180. Suddenly, he was on camera saying, "I believe Shannon is innocent." No explanation, no context, just a sharp turnaround that didn't sit right with anyone paying attention. Fans weren't buying it. The switch-up felt forced, convenient. Like Stephen wasn't trying to support Shannon, he was trying to protect himself. The timing was too perfect. Right as backlash started heating up online, people started pulling receipts. The same Stephen who immediately stood by Jay-Z when similar allegations surfaced couldn't do the same for a man he called a friend. When Jay-Z was under fire, Stephen didn't hesitate. He said, "The guy I know, this is not true." But when it came to Shannon, his response was, "I wasn't there." That contrast hit hard. Even rapper Maze jumped into the conversation, calling Stephen out as a snake. He accused him of only defending Shannon now because the heat was turning toward him. And fans agreed. They saw through the sudden shift and called it for what it was. Fake loyalty. Shannon's response, silence. No public reply, no comment, just distance. And according to insiders, that wasn't by accident, because in Shannon's eyes, the damage was already done. Behind the scenes, Shannon Sharpe wasn't just hurt, he was done. Sources close to him say he didn't text, didn't call, didn't explain. He just cut Stephen A. Smith off completely, like the friendship never existed. And for Shannon, that silence spoke louder than any public statement ever could. There were no backstage reconciliations, no conversations off camera, just cold distance. Stephen's name reportedly vanished from Shannon's contacts. No responses, no returns, nothing. Why? Because in Shannon's mind, this wasn't just about one shady comment, it was about trust and how fast it vanished. Insiders say Shannon felt betrayed not just by Stephen's words, but by his timing. Instead of pulling him aside, asking questions, or waiting for facts, Stephen took the story public and flipped the narrative. To Shannon, that wasn't journalism. That was a setup, And what made it worse? This wasn't some overnight fallout. Word is, Shannon had already started side-eyeing Stephen for months. The public just didn't know it yet. Behind the scenes, the friendship had cracks, and the lawsuit just exposed them. People in Shannon's circle say there was a long build-up, small signs, subtle jabs, a shift in energy. And when the drama exploded, Shannon saw it as confirmation. Stephen wasn't with him. He was watching him fall, and that's when Shannon decided this wasn't just a pause, this was a permanent break. The lawsuit may have triggered the fallout, but it wasn't the start of the tension. Sources say Shannon Sharpe had already started noticing a shift in Stephen A. Smith's energy, long before the legal drama hit the blogs, and it all seemed to start when Shannon's club, Shay podcast exploded. That Cat Williams interview, it broke the internet. Shannon's name was trending, clips were everywhere, and fans were calling it the best interview of the year. Suddenly, Shannon wasn't just a co-host, he was a star in his own lane, and that's when things got weird. People close to Shannon say Stephen didn't like it. The vibe changed. There were subtle digs on air, jokes that didn't feel like jokes, compliments that landed more like warnings. It was the kind of tension you can't fully explain, but you can feel. Shannon started to realize the support didn't feel genuine anymore, and when the lawsuit happened, it confirmed what he'd already started to suspect. Stephen wasn't in his corner. Instead of standing beside him during the heat, Stephen used the moment to shine the light back on himself. And when the cameras rolled, it wasn't just Shannon on trial, it was their friendship. Because behind the sports talk and suits, something petty was growing, and it finally cracked. As soon as Stephen A. switched sides and started claiming Shannon was innocent, the internet called cap. It was too fast, too clean, too convenient. Fans weren't the only ones calling him out. Rapper Mace publicly blasted Stephen, calling him a snake who only defended Shannon once the heat turned his way. He said Stephen wasn't trying to help, he was just trying to protect his own image, and that's exactly how it looked. Stephen dropped a full video about Shannon's situation before Shannon even made a public statement. He didn't check on him privately. He didn't hold back. He went full media mode, using the controversy as a talking point, like it was just another segment on his show. Then, when fans started dragging him for it, he tried to clean it up. He showed up on Big Boy's neighborhood, acting like he'd been ride or die for Shannon all along. Suddenly, he was saying Shannon was being set up, that people were jealous of his success, that he'd always believed in him. But the timing was off. The loyalty looked performative, and the public wasn't having it. Stephen got dragged for flip-flopping, for talking too much, and for pretending to care only after the damage was done, because by then, the betrayal wasn't just personal, it was public. Just when the first lawsuit had the internet on edge, a second one dropped, and this one cut even deeper. Shannon Sharpe's ex-girlfriend, Michelle Evans, came forward with a new lawsuit filed in late 2023, but this wasn't just a fresh case. It reopened a disturbing chapter from over a decade ago. Michelle claims their relationship, which began nearly 10 years earlier, turned dark in 2010. She says things escalated after she confronted Shannon about cheating. According to her, the situation turned violent, and the details were chilling. In the court documents, she accuses Shannon of threatening her, keeping tabs on her every move, and using fear to control her. One moment she described as people shook, being physically overpowered and forced into something she never agreed to. She says she froze, terrified of what might happen if she resisted. That alone was shocking, but it didn't stop there. Michelle says Shannon warned her to stay silent, claiming he had powerful connections and wouldn't hesitate to use them. That fear, she says, kept her quiet for years. She eventually filed a restraining order back when Shannon was still working with CBS Sports, but the media barely covered it. He stepped away quietly, and the headlines moved on. Now, she's back, and this time, she's naming names, telling stories, and standing behind Shannon's newest accuser. And with that, the entire situation shifted from scandal to potential pattern. As the lawsuits piled up, so did the public backlash. Shannon Sharpe's image, once seen as sharp, polished, and disciplined, started to crumble, and didn't take much. One viral moment lit the match. During a recent Nightcap episode, Shannon was breaking down the NFL draft with Chad Ochocinco Johnson and guest Joe Johnson. Everything was going smooth until it wasn't. Mid-conversation, Shannon suddenly snapped. He turned off camera and shouted, "Shut the fuck up!" Loud, raw, unfiltered. Everyone in the room froze. The clip went viral in minutes. Fans were stunned, not just by the outburst, but by what it seemed to reveal. Some said he looked completely on edge. Others called it a crack in the carefully controlled persona he'd built for years. With all the lawsuits, silence from Stephen, and media pressure, people began asking, was Shannon spiraling? Then came even more fuel. Former NFL player and ESPN analyst Ryan Clark said none of Shannon's alleged behavior surprised him. He said it lined up perfectly with the bold, in-your-face personality Shannon had sold to the world. Charleston White took it further, saying people needed to stop acting like Shannon was set up. His blunt take? He set himself up, getting involved with someone young enough to be his granddaughter. That line blew up online. And suddenly, more fans began connecting the dots. Because now, it didn't just look like a messy situation, it looked like a pattern. At this point, no one's riding for Shannon Sharpe like they used to. The lawsuits, the outbursts, and the resurfaced past have changed everything. His clean-cut public image, gone, replaced by doubt, suspicion, and headlines that don't seem to stop. But Stephen A. Smith isn't walking away clean either. He's being dragged for fake loyalty, performative defense, and turning his co-host's crisis into a hot take. Instead of reaching out behind the scenes, he went live on air, again and again, acting like he cared while promoting his brand in the same breath. To fans, it wasn't support. It was strategy, the switch-ups, the delayed sympathy, the double standards. All of it painted Stephen not as a loyal friend, but as someone playing both sides to save face. And that's what makes this story so loud, because at the center of it all was a friendship that millions thought was real. Two powerful voices, one explosive scandal, and now, no trust left. Shannon cut the cord, Stephen kept talking, and what's left? Just silence between them, and a mess the internet won't forget. So now the question is, was Mace right all along? Did Stephen show fake love? Or did Shannon destroy his own legacy, and Stephen just refused to go down with him? Either way, the truth is out, and everyone's picking a side.